on to the next our discussion point is about assessments. This is like the one of the most controversial topic I think I can ever say in the field of education. Like, and especially me coming from a country where we believe in the well, more or less, like of how it's always the marks or the grades define has the pupil learned something. So yes, we have in India, there has been experiments with formative and summative assessments, but then I think this whole idea of at the end of the day, maybe marks are the ones that give you what you actually know or where you actually stand. So there's it's a dilemma. So I don't know, like, so maybe if you could share a little bit of your thoughts on like what is the foundational principle of assessments, of how Finnish education system looks at, and why it is the way it is, or can it become in a better way, or so yeah, something
Yeah.
about that.
Oh, I have so many opinions on this, Lovis, and you know this. But it's not opinions, like
Yeah.
scientifically founded
Mm.
theories of working
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah.
So let
Yeah.
me share my screen.
Yeah. Please.
So starting off is this.
Yeah.
So like children are not objects for learning, teaching, and assessing. This is like the commodification of children. Like they are not products, and you as a teacher are not like a factory worker where you are supposed to churn out like the same
Yeah.
results. So like notice in
Yeah.
Finland, like we are not, as teachers, we're not judged upon like what is the average grade in our class, or like
Yeah.
our, yes, if a lot of children are failing, then we will of course be kind of questioned for it, but like as long as there's nothing like abnormal in the outputs, like no one actually like comes and checks anything.
Yeah.
And so also be wary like of this, like the child as a consumer or has the right to things that are not in the kind of UN declaration of like children's well-being and stuff like that, but they are not consumers of knowledge. So like these things, like these two things, these are what in Finland like are actively avoided, like
Mm.
actively avoided.
Mm.
And so like we talk about like the joy in learning and the joy for learning, and that
Yeah.
that there's like this inherent beauty in the learning and the development of the self.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
something else that happens is this: we kind of as teachers have a tendency to equate the person with the mark.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not even that, it's that like we equate the person with the behavior, if we say it that way. And so I say that in Finland, there's
Mm.
like only this one group of people who actually are trained for this, and it's the psychologists. And so they get
Yeah.
trained that
Mhm.
they do not equal their work. Like even though they are
Mm.
themselves the instrument for the work, that they are
Yeah.
not the work. And I say
Yeah.
that like this is the basic things that teachers need to learn. Like
Yeah.
really, 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 like you as a person, you
Yeah.
as a teacher, you are not your work. And there's this
Yeah.
idealization of the teacher work that says that, ooh, you
Mm.
need to like become and embody this kind of teacher persona.
Mm.
But in essence, I say, no,
Yeah.
you are who you are. And that's like undeniable. Like
Yeah.
Mahatma Gandhi talks about this as well.
Yeah.
Like after his incarceration, he said that
Yeah.
yeah, like that this, like it didn't change who he was, like
Yeah.
regardless of the circumstances, that no
Yeah.
one could take that away. And
Mm.
so like we need to think about students that way in order to assess
Yeah.
them fairly, like to think
Yeah.
that they are who they are, and that is
Mm.
inviolatable, it is like
Yeah.
non-touchable, and it doesn't depend on
Mm.
what they do. And so
Yeah.
when you put the behavior like to the
Yeah.
side,
Yeah.
like whatever that is, like being a good student or like being a
Mm.
poorly, like having a BAP, like a barrier
Mm.
to like learning and participation, social
Yes.
participation, like it
Yeah.
doesn't really matter, like because
Mm.
then you can deal with the behavior. So this is now quote Björkel 2023.
Yeah.
Ask me if I had this quote also in 20 09. Yes, I did. Like, because there are no lazy, complacent, spoiled, hyper, problematic, arrogant, evil, too much, over dramatic, and even like good students. Like don't even like leave this to the bad side, but like the positive side too. There are only and when you realize that that is underlying it all, like the arrogant or angry or aggressive student, like that person is scared. And when you realize that, then you can disregard from the behavior, you can kind of redirect that behavior in some way. But when you realize this, you also get more empathy for them and realize that they are good individuals regardless of what they do, and that your task as a teacher is to kind of look beyond the behavior and start dealing with what is actually kind of wrong. And when you also learn how to separate like who they are from what they do, then assessment becomes so much easier, because then you can start to go into, okay, so these are the learning objectives, this is what I'm grading, and you have those criteria on beforehand. And when you have those, and I actually have a picture of that as well, I think around here somewhere. Oh no, it's not in here. But like the reason still being that, and we can watch my child and what they're doing at daycare for a second. They are learning about what to call like the emergency number, and they had like healthcare staff helping them put band-aids on their little teddy bears, and sort of like assessing now my 4-year-old daughter Lena over here, or Line, is like you assess what she's doing, not and let me tell you, like in Finland we don't assess kids at all in daycare, and we don't give any like marks in grade 1 and 2, and then in like the rest of them we give grades, but we don't learn because of the grade. And I was thinking about that when you said earlier too, Lovis, that like when we look and when we like assess overall, like that the assessment in Finland is based on like the future, like where are we going and how does this assessment help us to know like what we should do next as teachers, and what the child should learn next, and not mark them for the end of their life.
That's true. I mean, as you heard, I remember like how this has been, I mean, even you have mentioned it several times in our class that you always take the student and then compare it to the objective of what is to be achieved, not compare the two students in any form. So it's always, has the student attained the objective? So I think that's been something I remember, which you had mentioned in the class. Sorry, please go ahead.
Yes, and this is it. I was just finding the image that actually portrayed what you were saying. Like it's the standards-based assessment that actually goes like, if I have standards, like if we have now that the student needs to learn how to ride a bike, like if the emerging part is sits with support on the bike and is willing to try, is able to store the bike properly, beginning with supports rides 10 meters, developing with support rides 20 meters, proficient without support rides 20 meters, and advanced 50 meters. And I'm just making this up, like this is just my made up example. But like if we have these criteria on beforehand, then we don't have to compare students. So like that is actually like within the legislation in Finland, you can actually read these days that you are not allowed to compare students among themselves. So I can't take like the student Hannah and the student Lovis and compare them amongst each other, but I can compare Hannah to these criteria, and I compare Lovis to these criteria. And when I do that, then it's fairer.
Okay.